Hey all, Gingerbread Ninja here and welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to be ranking every Pseudo Legendary Pokémon competitively. Pseudo Legends are a group of Pokémon, normally one in each generation, there's an exception of Gen 3 with Metagross Salamence, that have the stats to be legendary but aren't considered legendary because you can obtain infinite in the game before the champion. They all have a base stat total of 600, so stats are difficult to rank them by. However, distribution is an important thing, as well as move pool and abilities. So with all that clarification out the way, let's dive into the tier list. Starting up, it appears we have Dragapult, easy S tier. This is probably the best pseudo-legendary. There is another on this list that I won't spoil that could be better, arguably. But Dragapult is just such a good Pokemon. It's normally run Hyper Offense with Phantom Force, Dragon Dart, Fly, and Protect, with Life Orb as its item, just because its ability Clear Body is so strong. It prevents opponents from lowering your stats, and in a Dynamax format where 5 max moves already do that, it's so strong. And it's got an amazing speed stat of base 142, which I believe the only relevant Pokemon that outspeed that, Pheromosa, I think is relevant, but not used much, and Regieleki. So this thing being able to outspeed so many Pokemon in the format, and Regieleki normally wants to Electro Web and gain speed control, it can't do that against Dragapult because of Clear Body. So Dragapult is just such a strong counter to so many Pokemon in the format. It's got an incredible move pool as well, and an amazing base 120 attack. You could even run special, it has base 100, it's not bad, but physical attacking moves will hit stronger. You often do see this thing being run alongside Colossal with Surf, and that is to activate a weakness policy and Steam Engine at the same time. Dragapult also gets access to dual screens, Will-O-Wisp, Breaking Swipe for support moves, so when you see this thing, you can't just instantly know what it's going to do. It's very similar to Spectria in that it's a fast, frail ghost type that can hit really hard, and it gets a lot of coverage moves as well. So Spectria and Dragapult are very similar. Spectria just getting the edge in usage, but overall Dragapult a really solid second choice, especially if you want elemental resistances with Dragon, so to Fire, Water, Grass, Electric, for example. Coming up next, we do have Dragonite. Dragonite, unfortunately, is a C tier Pokemon. As solid as its stats are, base 134 attack, that hits really hard. Base 80 speed isn't the right place for it to be. It's got decent bulk as well, with 91, 95, and 100 in HP, defense, and special defense. The thing that Dragonite does not appreciate, however, is the 80 base speed. Sure, it's a flying type, and you get max airstream if you want to Dynamax this thing. However, it's not really the greatest speed tier to be in. It's too fast for Trick Room, it's kind of slow, and while its bulk is decent, it's going to be hit first a lot of the time in turns. It usually runs weakness policy with either Inner Focus or Multiscale. Multiscale is going to weaken super effective hits at full HP, or hits in general, I can't remember, which does help with the weakness policy activation. You're not taking much damage and you're getting a +2 attack or special attack boost. Special attack is viable with base 100. However, it is normally a physical attacker with dual wing beat, extreme speed for that priority, which does help out its speed tier, but it is a normal move which isn't great for it. A lot of other Dragonite run Dragon Claw, Ice Punch for coverage, Rock Slide also for coverage, and then there's some that run like Bulky Roost, and it can set up with Dragon Dance as well. There's a lot of things it can do, but it's one of those Pokemon where others just do its job better. For example, on here, you do have Garchomp, which is a much faster and more offensive Dragonite, but with the ground typing, which is an example of how other Pokemon do outclass Dragonite at its job. If you feel the need to use it, you can, but normally there are other Pokemon that do its job better. Next up, we have Garchomp. This has actually seen a rise in usage recently. I would have put it in B tier before, but now I'm probably thinking it's A tier. It's a relatively fast Pokemon, base 102 speed, 100 tends to be the mark between fast and slow, or average, and base 130 attack is nothing to sleep on. It gets access to Rock Slide, Earthquake, Swords Dance, Protect, and that is the most common moveset at the minute. Dragon moves are kind of bad right now, especially with Tapu Fini being popular, with Misty Terrain weakening Dragon-type attacks. However, a lot of the time, it is a variation of Dragon moves if you run one. Dragon Claw and Breaking Swipe are really solid options. Breaking Swipe is gonna give you that Intimidate that Lando T has. I know there's a bit of a debate going on about which ground type is better between Garchomp and Lando. The argument for Lando is you get access to Intimidate and Max Airstream, which boosts speed, and Garchomp does get Breaking Swipe, which is more spammable Intimidate and a bit of an attack off. Other than that, I think Lando has much better bulk. A lot of special hits are going to hit Garchomp rather hard. Base 85 special defense is just alright. 108 HP is really solid. A lot of people think this thing can't take too many hits, but its defenses aren't anything to laugh at. Most of the time you are seeing this thing with Life Orb, Rough Skin. However, Sandveil, if you're running it next to a T-Tar or a Hippowdon or any other Sandsetter like a Gigalith, it can be a solid ability. Rough Skin generally more popular though because common weaknesses between Sandsetters and Garchomp. There is a lot of Lumberry, White Herb as well on it, and that's because Intimidate and Will-O-Wisp is a popular counter to this, although Life Orb is still the most common. So I think we will see an uprise in Lum and White Herb Garchomp, and that may increase its usage more, but for now I am thinking it's still A tier. Next up is Goodra. I know you're going to be tired of all these dragon types, as only 2 pseudos aren't dragon, but Goodra is a weird Pokemon, to say the least. It's got really solid special bulk with 150 special defense, 90 HP is solid as well. Base 100 attack and base 110 special attack allows it to attack on both the physical and special side, and you can't tell which one until you face it. However, it is in the same speed tier as Dragonite with base 80, putting it in that weird spot where it's going to be hit first in a turn regardless of Trick Room being up or not. However, its one really bad stat, for a Pseudo Legendary at least, is its base 70 defense. That is where Goodra struggles. If there was a physical version of Assault Vest, I think Goodra would be doing really well right now. Its most common item is Assault Vest, however weakness policy is really strong on it as well if you don't expect it, as it can take special hits really well. For those of you who don't know, I actually used this on Ryota's team, pop it up on screen now editing me, and it was fun to use, I'd say. Its most common moveset is Draco Meteor, Flamethrower, Thunderbolt, Feint, which is the same one I was using. However, it has such good special coverage with access to Sludge Bomb to raise its special attack as Max Ooze. Ice Beam, it has a lot of physical coverage as well, like Power Whip, Earthquake, Breaking Swipe, Rock Slide, Fire Punch. It just has all the moves in the world to work with, which makes it so strong. Especially as a weakness policy user, you don't know what coverage moves it can get. It does well alongside Comfey to activate that policy with a +3 in priority Draining Kiss that will basically guarantee you activate it unless your opponent has a fast follow me or fast fake out user. I'm looking at its teammates now and I'm actually noticing the entire team I was using on stream is actually the top 5 most used Pokemon next to it, which is interesting. So I think Ryota's been spreading what he's doing. So yeah, it's overall a solid offensive Mon, but overall, there are Pokemon that do its job better. Next up is Hydreigon or Hydreigon, however you want to say it. C tier. It's along now with Dragonite. The Dark typing is its secondary type, which is solid, especially when it's a special attacker. Max Darkness can lower your opponent's special defense. However, that typing does give it a 4 times weakness to Fairy, and Fairy being the best type in the game really screws it. Its only amazing stat is its base 125 special attack, and the rest are all in the 90s, other than attack, which is 105, but you probably don't want it to be a physical attacker anyway. However, the thing about this Mon is the surprise element. You don't know its EV spread at all, because it could be fast, it could be bulky with those stats, and with it being a dragon type, of course it gets access to really good coverage. It's running moves like Dark Pulse, of course, Draco Meteor, Earth Power, Protect for protecting, of course. That's seen on nearly every Pokemon at the minute. Dragon Pulse if you don't want the special attack drop from Draco Meteor. Snarl, good supportive move. Flamethrower and Flash Cannon for coverage. And Taunt for if you're wanting this to be support again. And of course, Nasty Plot is a really solid setup move to give this thing. Its ability Levitate is so good as well. If you feel you're weak to, for example, a Psychic type, but also Ground, then Hydreigon is probably for you. I'm noticing it's running Life Orb a lot, with Safety Goggles, Assault Vest. They all seem to be the common offensive Pokemon items. Weakness Policy is at a lower percentage as well, but I can definitely see this thing holding that given its bulk and speed. But once again, it's a Dragon type which isn't really strong at the minute, and there's other Pokemon like Galarian Moltres that just do this thing's job way better. So nothing much to say about this one, it's just a weird place in the format where Fairy types are really strong. Galarian Moltres is just a better option really. But if you want to use this thing so bad, just go ahead. And it can still work. Now we have Kommo-o, which is... oh, well, it's not transparent. But Kommo-o is probably the worst of the pseudo-legendaries right now. This is probably the one of them I have not seen at all. Its attacking stats are 110 in attack, 100 in special attack. So average, you can alternate between them if you want. But the rest of its stats are kind of in a weird position. It's got base 75 HP, but 125 defense. So you're trying to make it bulky physically, but it's not that bulky because of its HP stat. It's got 105 special defense as well, same issue there. Its HP stat is bringing down its bulk. And once again, it's in that weird speed area with base 85, where it's equivalent to Rillaboom, Feeny, Indeedee, all the terrain setters. And if it's speed tying with Feeny, that's not a great thing, because it can just be one-shot easy. It's normally running Protect, Clangorous Soul, which is one of its signature moves that it takes a third of its health and gives it an Omni Boost, which is really strong, not gonna lie. But you need a really good Follow Me user to make that work. For its attacking moves, it's running Drain Punch, Shadow Claw, Aura Sphere, Flash Cannon, Poison Jab, Body Press, which is interesting, because you wouldn't think with its stats it wants to be offensive. However, a lot of pseudos just are because of their nature as pseudos. So I'm liking Body Press on there. With its high physical defense, it does make sense if you invest EVs and a nature into that. And you can't really expect this thing to be physical or special. It does get access to Belly Drum as well, which takes half your health and multiplies your attack stat by 4. Really strong once again if you've got a good Follow Me user. But yes, again, it's outclassed by the Fairy type, and you want to use other faster Dragon types, maybe with Dragon Dance if you're wanting to set up, like Garchomp or Dragapult. So it's just in that awful place in the format where it doesn't do anything. Especially when Dazzling Gleam is a spread Fairy type move, which can get around Follow Me. It's not doing much for you. Coming up, we have Metagross. Metagross, easy STA. This is the second best pseudo in the format, according to Pikalytics. However, I think it has potential to be the best. Steel Psychic, Steel top 2 type in the game. Top 3 definitely, but you know, you could argue first. Although Fairy has been more dominant recently. This thing has a whopping 135 attack stat. 130 physical defense, which is really strong, especially for a Steel type where it wants to be bulky. Base 70 speed is its, once again, weird stat where pseudos will have at least that speed, unless you're T-Tar. So it can't function in Trick Room too well, and it can't function out of Trick Room too well. However, there's a big twist to avoid this issue with Metagross's speed. So Metagross has the ability Clear Body, like Dragapult, which allows it to bypass Bulldoze when it's hit, along with proccing a weakness policy. So Metagross gets its weakness policy activated, and the opposing Pokemon are slowed down, which is great for Metagross, putting it as a great spot for Dynamaxing. It's often running Iron Head, Stomping Tantrum, because Max Steel Spike and Max Quake are really solid together, raising your physical defense and special defense, along with Protect, which you always run most of the time if you're not Assault Vest. Because protecting when you have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weaknesses to Dark, Ghost, Fire. Ground. There's one I'm missing. No, you're only weak to 4 things. I was thinking fighting for the steel weakness, but Psychic resists that. It's just such a strong Pokemon. It often runs Rock Slide and Ice Punch for coverage, Bullet Punch for priority, Zen Headbutt if you want a stab Psychic move. However, weirdly enough, it's not really common right now. Psychic as a type isn't too good offensively. I know it's very similar to Solgaleo back in Series 8, but Solgaleo was way faster with base 97 speed, I believe. Of course, Metagross isn't quite Solgaleo level of a threat. However, just being able to max and take over the game because you got your weakness policy activated, your opponent's speed is lowered, and you can raise your bulk in your max moves. Such a solid option to be able to do. Next up, Salamence. Salamence, once again, weird position in the format. It's yet again another Pokemon where it can do well, but other Pokemon do its job way better. This thing has a really strong base 135 attack stat, and base 100 speed, not too shabby. It's in the fast range as most people would consider. However, its bulk is nothing really going for it. It's got base 95 HP, which is solid, but base 80 defense and base 80 special defense isn't really helping it out too much. Interestingly enough, it is paired with Metagross 30% of the time, which is because it gets access to Bulldoze. And that Bulldoze is going to activate Metagross weakness policy, slower opponent, while Metagross remains at equal speed to what it was before. So once again, a really strong option. But like I said, there's other Pokemon that proc Metagross's policy better, like Spectria, for example. You could argue Landorus Incarnate can do that. I've seen Suicune, Latias. However, despite this thing's stats with 135 physical attack, you see it more so as a special attacker, which is interesting. Its most common move is Protect with 60% usage, and then you're seeing Air Slash, Draco Meteor, and Flamethrower. But there are others running physical with Dragon Claw, Rock Slide, and Dual Wing Beat, as well as Earthquake. So once again, it's just a bit of a mix what Salamence can do, but like I say, every Pokemon just does its job better. And finally, to round out the video, we have Tyranitar. That is a really solid A tier. Tyranitar, a really bulky physical attacker with access to Sandstream. And Sandstream, of course, setting the sand, raising this thing's special defense even more than what it already was. Base 100 HP, base 110 defense, base 100 special defense, solid bulk, really easy to use. This is the slowest of all the pseudo legendaries, base 61, and it's not actually a bad thing for it. This thing is able to function in Trick Room, maybe get a Bulldoze on it, and I know it doesn't have Clear Body. However, Bulldoze in Trick Room slows Tyranitar down in order for you to attack first, which is even better if your opponents have Flying types or Levitate Mons on the field, because they're going to move last a lot of the time. Of course, it is speed tied with Celesteela, so the amount of speed you run on this thing will indeed matter for speed ties or who goes first in and out of Trick Room against Celesteela. Of course, T-Tar being weak to Celesteela is a bit of a threat, and it's also threatened a lot by the Urshifu forms, but other than that, it's just a solid mon. Its most common move is Rock Slide, which is no surprise to see, double chance to flinch 30% of the time on one Pokemon. So it's a 51% chance to flinch a Pokemon if it goes before both of your opponents. It's running Protect and Lash Out, Superpower, Assurance, Crunch. The dark move you use is just more of a preference thing. Superpower is interesting. It's more so for coverage, and it's a really strong base 120 attack. The attack and defense drop is something to consider though, but using such a strong move can be beneficial, especially when weakness policy is the most common item. You also see Ice Punch, High Horsepower, Stomping Tantrum, which is of course ice and ground coverage. So it's just got a large variety of physical moves. Dragon Dance is also a good setup move if you feel the need to use it, because if people try to play around your weakness policy and not hit you super effectively, you can just set up like that. As I said, weakness policy the most common item, and it's very easy to proc that with all the weaknesses T-Tar has, to Fairy, Ground, Water, Grass, Fighting. But there is a large variety of items like Focus Sash, because T-Tar's weaknesses, as I said, there's a lot of them. So a lot of the time you feel like you won't live hits. It's also good because Sandstream doesn't hit Tyranitar like it does with most Pokemon due to its rock typing. So if you live on 1 HP, you'll survive even if the sand is up. It's also running Choppleberry, which is to half the 4 times effective fighting moves. Choice Scarf and Choice Band. They're just solid items that if you feel the need to hit really hard or go fast, which is difficult with T-Tar with base 61 speed. So Choice Scarf is your best option for it, as unusual of a choice it is. And finishing off its items is Assault Vest, which of course, if you're wanting to run really bulky and full coverage moves, then go for it. T-Tar, really solid Mon. Being able to set weather is good for it with other users like Excadrill or Lycanroc I've seen recently, putting it in that solid A tier. So that's going to be it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you haven't already, so you'll be updated when my videos go live. Follow me on Twitch as well, because I'll be streaming 3 times a week, and follow my Twitter as I'll be posting the final results there. With all that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye!